How's it going, everyone? My name is Case and I want to welcome you to the TFL Bike channel. If you've watched any of the content on our other TFL channels, you'll know kind of what to expect with our content. We do a lot of reviews with new vehicles. We get out there, test things on-road, off-road, but in this particular video, what I'm going to be doing is just walking you through the BMW R18. We actually made a video on this bike when it first premiered, but we got a chance to talk to the people at BMW who are manufacturing this machine, so we have some more information on what this bike means for BMW motorcycles going forwards, and really why they built it at all. But first, let's start out with some of the specs on this bike. And I'll go ahead and pull up a picture of the motor here, because that is what really makes this thing what it is. This is a 1,802cc air and oil cooled boxer engine. It's a horizontally opposed twin. Now that is a big motor, which makes sense because it's in a big bike, and I love the fact that it's air and oil cooled. You can see at the bottom here it's got this oil cooler, which isn't the prettiest thing on the bike, but otherwise the fact that it is air and oil cooled keeps the radiator out of the way. It gives this motor more of an old school simple appearance, and I think that's awesome. But 91 horsepower at 4,750 RPMs and a peak of 116 foot-pounds of torque. But what's more impressive than that is the fact that this bike maintains 110 foot-pounds of torque all the way from 2,000 to 4,000 RPM consistently. So no matter what gear you're in or what RPMs, chances are when you get on the throttle on this bike, it's going to be torquey at the very least. And getting into the design a little bit, you can see they've gone and kind of copied some of their old school designs. This is a 1936 BMW R5, and not only is the overall shape the same, but there's a lot of cool little elements. So if you look at the tank, it's got this teardrop shape and these double pinstripes on it. It's exactly the same on this old R5. And you also get some other elements. So this is the 1936 R5, and you can see this exposed drive shaft going all the way back to the back hub. It's exposed. That's pretty cool. But here it is on the new bike, and it's even better, even beefier. I mentioned this in the video that we made when we first talked about this bike being revealed, and I saw a couple comments of people saying, that's a bad idea, someone's shoelace or foot is going to get caught in that when you're going down the road, it's going to be a liability. And honestly, I disagree. I think the sprocket and chain on your average motorcycle is arguably more dangerous than that. Inevitably, there's going to be some part on a motorcycle while it's going down the road that you don't want to stick your finger in. There's no way of getting around that. But what this is very cool if you ask me. Here's a look at the gauge right behind the headlight bucket, and you can see at the bottom it says Berlin built. And that's not just a piece of marketing, that's actually true. These motorcycles are manufactured in Germany, and so you should be able to get the quality that you would expect out of a BMW. Now, moving on to why exactly they built this motorcycle. Well, they built it specifically to compete with the Harley-Davidson Softail Slim. And as a result, what we've gotten is a big, heavy, custom cruiser motorcycle, just like what the Softail Slim is. Harley-Davidson has by far the largest market share in the custom cruiser segment of motorcycles, but their sales have been falling off. So BMW is seeing this as a chance to capitalize on some of those lost sales from Harley-Davidson. Comparing this directly with the Softail Slim, both of the bikes are priced relatively similarly. The Softail Slim starts at $15,999, and this BMW is a little bit more expensive. It starts with all the delivery fees and everything at $18,190. So it's a bit more expensive, but as it should be. This bike has a couple things that the Softail Slim doesn't have. It's got some different riding modes, starting with Rock, and Rock will give you full throttle response. It'll give you traction control that only steps in after a little bit of wheel spin, so it'll allow you to have some fun and get on the throttle, spin up the back tire a little bit before it steps in. The next mode down from Rock is Roll, which will give you still most of your throttle response, but it's going to have the traction control step in as soon as it senses any slip. And then the lowest performance mode would be Rain, which not only has the traction control step in anytime it senses slippage, but it will also reduce your throttle response to make it less likely that that's going to happen in the first place. So one advantage of this bike is the fact that it has different riding modes and, as I mentioned, traction control. Another advantage of this bike over the Harley-Davidson is the fact that it has dual front discs. The Softail Slim only comes with one, this comes with two. That's a plus. But this bike makes 5 more horsepower than the Softail Slim for a total of 91, and it weighs almost 100 pounds more than the Softail Slim for a total of 761 pounds wet weight. So it's just a little bit more power and it's a lot more weight. It's also 4 inches longer than the Softail Slim. And you might see that depending on what you want to do with one of these bikes as either a pro or a con, because inevitably this is going to be more of a highway cruiser than a handling bike or anything. And for that reason, the extra weight and the extra length of the bike should give it more stability. Another thing that BMW wants to do to help compete with Harley-Davidson is offer tons of different modifications. So they've worked with companies like Vance and Hines, they've worked with Mustang Seats and Roland Sands Design to come out with a number of parts that you can add to these bikes to help personalize them. Here you can see a Springer style seat, which is old school. It's very reminiscent of this old BMW R5. And some of the companies that they've worked with have already started modifying these bikes to show what's possible. This is a bike that was modified by Roland Sands Design to be a drag style bike. You can see a velocity stack right here, these cool looking pipes with funky tips on them, and this gold badge, gold anodized inverted forks, and this big drag slick in the back. This combination totally changes the attitude of this bike. It also appears to have a hardtail, which the standard motorcycle does not have. Even though the frame has a shape that's meant to appear somewhat like a hardtail, like it did back in the day, there is actually a hidden monoshock that's underneath the seat. This bike, on the other hand, does actually appear to be a legitimate hardtail, so it's undergone some serious modifications. Another custom one of these bikes in a totally different style would be this R18, and you can see it's got these interesting metal inserts on top of the tank and the seat, which contrast from the black paint and the white pinstriping. It has a distressed leather seat with straps on it and this very classic cafe style fairing on the front. The headlight shape, not really my style. I wish they would have gone with just a straight up round headlight, but it is cool seeing that BMW wants to make these bikes something that can be completely personalized the same way that they are in Harley-Davidson's. And you can see that as well in this image, which shows that they've done less in terms of integrating parts. They've wanted to make it so that it's easy to separate different pieces of the motorcycle, so that not only can you as a consumer take it apart easily and interchange things, but so that third parties can make seats and tanks and they don't have to have this crazy shape to make clearance for whatever integrated electronics and things that you would usually be integrating into these parts on modern bikes. And speaking of modern bikes, one of the things that they've done with this is go a little bit back to a more old school way of building these machines. In the past, BMW has been very focused on making functional motorcycles, and that was their top priority. The main thing was make the bike as good as it can be in terms of specs per the cost for the owner, and that's awesome, but it doesn't necessarily give you the most emotional connection to the vehicle. I'll give you an example. The side covers, these fork covers, and the headlight bucket, as well as, of course, the fenders and the tank. These parts are all metal. On most bikes, including BMWs of the past, things like these side covers and headlight buckets, whatever other parts might be plastic, because plastic is easy to manufacture, it's cheap to manufacture, it's cheap to replace, it's lightweight. So from a functionality standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. However, when you touch it or tap up against it, it doesn't have that same quality old school feel to it. So what they've done with this bike and the R9T BMW before it is go back to a more old school way of building things and making these touch points on the bike more premium to enhance the user experience. So it's focusing less on pure functionality and focusing more on a machine that's really going to connect with the rider, or at least that's what they say. And in terms of the riding experience, we haven't had a chance to get our hands on one of these bikes yet, but just looking at it, there's a number of things that you can already tell are going to be true of it. Obviously, it's a heavy bike, it's a long bike, it's a low bike. So it's made to be mostly functional on the highway. It's going to be very stable, but it's not going to corner very hard. This thing sits very low and that motor sticks out very far, so you're not going to be able to lean it. But it will be torquey, and these BMW Airhead motors, especially of the past, and it remains to be seen going forward, but most likely these will be reliable, good, solid engines that will be able to do a lot of highway miles, because the BMW Airhead motors of the past are arguably some of the most reliable engines that were put in motorcycles. The only Airhead BMWs I have ever ridden have all been fantastic despite their age and their mileage. They really hold up well over time. So hopefully it will be the same with this design, because they have really just taken their older designs and modernized it enough to make it suitable for a modern rider, but nothing too crazy. So let us know in the comments what you all think. Is this a good bike? Is it going to be successful? Do you think people will buy it? Because it is arriving in dealerships in the US as we speak. As always, this is Case with TFL Bike. Be sure to go back to TFL Bike YouTube channel for more news, views, and real-world reviews. We'll see you soon.